doing business in Africa. You can't afford to be without Africa Investor.
So hello, everybody. Welcome back to the ARC Spotlights. We're actually here in our Canary Wharf offices for ARC Ratings, and I have a pleasure today to have Hubert Danso, who is here to talk to us a little bit about GEMs. So Hubert, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you very much, Alex. Always a pleasure to be here and support your excellent work. My name's Dr. Hubert Danso. I'm the CEO and Chairman of Africa Investor, which is an infrastructure investment platform for institutional investors. I also chair the CFA New York's Global Asset Owners Council and the African Union's Continental Business Network. And I also co-chair His Majesty King Charles III's Sustainable Markets Initiative Africa Council.
Hubert, to start off, when you talk a little bit about GEMs, kind of its potential and its limitations.
Yes, well, first of all, GEMS, the Global Emerging Markets Database, is essentially probably one of the best repositories of default and return rate data, combining all of the private, sub-sovereign, sovereign, and sovereign guaranteed lending for over 20 of the leading multilateral development banks for over decades now. And it's a really rich resource. It's probably the only resource of its kind for emerging markets and developing countries. And it's really important for us as the institutional investment community, because that's the type of data that we really need access to, so we can actually get a much better and more transparent view on the actual defaults and the pricing, so that we can actually calibrate the risk related to investing in these markets and hopefully really address this cost of capital issue that so many of the emerging markets and developing countries are suffering. Now, the reality is we've been pushing for this data for decades now from the multilateral development banks. And of course, unfortunate competitive tendencies have made it very difficult for us to get access to that data. Now it's coming, and we believe it's coming in dribs and drabs. But we are very much aligned with the political leadership, the heads of state who are the sovereign shareholders of the multilateral development banks, and their recommendation through the G20, which mandated the GEMS consortium, which is the secretariat that is responsible for bringing together and managing this very rich source of data. They were given a mandate to democratize access to this data to us as the risk-taking community, and so we can not only get access to the data to be able to better price the risk, but so that we could also scale the allocation. So unfortunately, to date, we've had dribs and drabs of the information, and the GEMS 2.0 recommendation of a separate entity dedicated to being able to interface with the market, with institutional investors, credit rating agencies, and other key ecosystem players to accomplish that goal has not happened yet. So we look forward to continuing to work with the shareholders at the leadership level to really, first of all, make sure that GEMS 2.0 happens, so that we can then even take it to another level where it becomes not just a matter of disclosure and ability to transparently assess the pricing, but we can actually then employ a lot of our private sector expertise, ingenuity, and portfolio companies' capacity to see how we can scale, because we need trillions to accomplish the Sustainable Development Goals. We need trillions to address the Paris Agreement and the climate change investment needs in emerging markets and developing countries. And we believe, and we congratulate the MDBs for coming up with GEMS in the first place, because it's a really interesting catalytic tool that can really help alleviate some of the climate finance and the SDG financing gap for emerging markets and developing countries.
And you've now talked about GEMS 1.0, GEMS 2.0. So what is GEMS 3.0, and what's its intent, and really how can it help achieve scale?
Well, GEMS 3.0 is, the private sector really just trying to make our contribution as fully paid up members of the development community. We see the climate agenda, we see the Sustainable Development Goals agenda as a long-term investment agenda. Now, we are the long-term investment community as asset owners and institutional investors. So we think that we can bring a lot of expertise in long-term investing and the mobilization of private capital relative to the fact that the multilateral development bank's balance sheet collectively globally is about 1.5 trillion. And we as the institutional investment community have assets under management in the region of between 2 to 300 trillion. So we know that we're the only constituency that can really provide leadership on private capital mobilization for emerging markets in developing countries. So we've really come together as a consortium of long-term institutional investors representing that 2 to 300 trillion dollar pool of assets globally, and asked ourselves, how can we employ our expertise as long-term investors? How can we employ our market capacity to be able to provide and deliver that finance? And how in this technology-driven age can we employ best-of-class technology to not only house and assess the data for pricing purposes and transparency purposes, but how can we bring all of these attributes together so that we can scale the allocations to address the mobilization of these trillions of finance and investment? And so we've come together and really characterized the platform called GEMS 3.0, which essentially brings together all of the best data that we can provide to complement the GEMS data, and then really ensure that we move just from a disclosure and access the data issue so that we can actually create through GEMS 3.0 an asset allocation scaling tool. So we can use all the key analytics and our expertise and our ability to increase our allocations and do so in a transparent and sort of scalable and responsible fashion through GEMS 3.0 as a platform. So it's really going to be almost like a very accessible platform digitally that will basically conglomerate and aggregate data, and then it will use highly responsive analytical tools and predictive analytical tools to give us as the investors insight into the extent to which we can responsibly scale our allocations to emerging markets and developing countries. Really exciting project, and thank you, ARC Analytics, for your leadership and partnership in this. It's fantastic. There's nothing like it in the market. The market is really just continuing to push at the moment for release the data, release GEMS. When if you release it, all you really get is the ability to assess the pricing on your risk. We now see trillions being required for this transition in emerging markets and developing countries, and it grows each year, and there's no real solution. We believe GEMS 3.0 is really going to take data disclosure into a scalable asset allocation tool through GEMS 3.0. So really looking forward to working on that, and your own participation as the investment community and the broader ecosystem concerned about ensuring that emerging markets and developing countries have a just energy transition.
It sounds extremely exciting, Hubert, at least with regards to GEMS 3.0, and as you kind of mentioned, our analytics aspect with regards to its model, potentially helping facilitate that platform. And kind of just to conclude, thinking about the various market participants, what is your ask of the various market constituents to help support these vital sustainable projects, in particular in emerging markets and Africa in particular?
I think we sort of put it in a phrase that's got sort of three words, or four maybe, institutional investor public partnerships. We need a new form of partnership that brings our 300 trillion pool of institutional assets working much more strategically and programmatically with governments. And we think the anchor and the foundational pillar of that is data. So first of all, we really want to be able to share as much data and expertise as we can as the institutional investment community. That's the ask of colleagues, and it's not a tough ask because they're actually already committed to this. From governments, the biggest first advancement that we would like to see is that you mandate and you ensure that GEMS 2.0, that separate special purpose vehicle from the GEMS consortium with its own dedicated CEO, with its own dedicated operational procedure, is mandated to work with GEMS 3.0 as the marketplace. I think that's critical. And then I think, more generally, and this really is a call to colleagues again in the investment community, we need bankable, investable, underlying transactions that can be supported. So we really also are putting out a call to our colleagues in the portfolio companies, the green tech companies, the project developers, to be ambitious. Let's get some of those large at scale projects. And that's what I think we can bring through our portfolio companies to really create that pipeline of investable projects. And governments, please work with us on the nationally determined contribution projects. In Africa, we have $3 trillion worth of nationally determined contribution project investment opportunities. Allianz has already said they don't believe that it's $3 trillion worth of projects. They actually think it's closer to 7 trillion. So this is a huge opportunity for us to really be that constituency, forming this institutional investor public partnership that will no doubt transform the private capital mobilization opportunities to deliver the sustainable development goals and the Paris Agreement obligations in Africa, emerging markets and developing countries.
And if people are interested in reading a little bit more about GEMS and the platform, ARC has a research report which is available on our website, and I invite readers to go ahead and take a look at that as well. So as Alex Santel, the Deputy CEO of ARC Ratings, I wanted to thank again Hubert for participating at our ARC Spotlight. So thanks again, Hubert. And many, many thanks to all our viewers online.
My pleasure, Alex. Keep up the good work. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Doing business in Africa, you can't afford to be without Africa Investor.